Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today a super special guest, really guests, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But we have with us today the co-authors of a brand new book called Supernatural Love, a true story of life and love after death. So if you have ever experienced the passing of a loved one, or you're curious, about what life here on earth looks like when someone has passed away, you're going to want to hang on for this interview because it's going to get very interesting very quickly. And I would like to welcome Pam Johnson, one of the co-authors. Pam, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much, Morgan, for having me. And yeah, one of the co-authors, the other one is just not in the body. What can we say? And I don't know if any other book has been written like that. I know there have been books written, including like contribution from the other side, from the soul on the other side. But this literally was written with my husband who passed away. And he was the one who told me to write the book. And I had no idea that I would do that and would lead me here. But then my life has always been rather unusual. And when I met Alan, that changed the trajectory of my life. But it was really with his passing that everything kind of changed. And you would have thought, me being a professional psychic channel and healer and teacher for 35 years, that I would be used to that. But I didn't really even think that my husband, once he crossed over, would start talking to me. But that's what happened. And I was caught by surprise when other people were telling me that they were hearing from him. And you would think that I would know that, but we're just human. All of us are human, even if you're a psychic or a channel or a spiritual teacher. And I was just shocked, and I didn't know what to do with that. Really not prepared, but I trusted it enough because it just felt right. I knew that was him. And so when on the day after he crossed, when he said, "We're going to write a book," and I said, "What about? What are you talking about? A book?" Like, I hadn't written a thing yet. Okay. I said, "A book?" He said, "Yeah, I'm going to tell you what's going on. I'm going to explain everything to you." So I started to write and take his messages down. And he asked me to form a Facebook group, which I thought was really hilarious because he hated social media. He hated Facebook. He could not find his way around the internet to save his life and was constantly complaining about notifications from Facebook. And here my husband tells me from the other side, "Could you please form a group? And could you please share what I'm about to tell you in that group?" So I just started writing on my computer and felt compelled to share it. And I just talked about my journey. I just shared what was happening to me every day, what he was telling me, because he had messages for me and for other people. And then other people were sharing with me that they were experiencing him. And I couldn't believe that either, the things that were happening. So I wrote that down. And so the whole book, as he came to tell me, was going to be like a roadmap for people who wanted to do what we were doing, which means connecting with a loved one who's passed away, specifically in our case, a partner or spouse, because we're not saying that that's a better relationship than any other. We're just saying it's more unique because your partner can oftentimes be your twin soul, which is a unique kind of connection. And again, we're not saying that that's better. It's just that it's different than, say, the relationship between a parent and child or sibling or friend, right? Because your partner, their life is entwined with yours. And usually your future, you've planned out your future, haven't you? And that person is your person. And if they cross, there might not be another person, probably won't be another person like them for sure. You might not ever meet somebody you love that way. And so he said that the book was to be about that, but it would help anybody who lost someone because the principles are the same. The fact that we don't die and the fact that we can stay in touch and experience them in another way, not just communicate through a medium periodically as people do, and it's wonderful that they do, but actually hear them, sense them, even see them clairvoyantly. And he says, and have a supernatural relationship, okay? One that is, okay, his word he's telling me is it's mind-blowing, and I'd say it actually is. Okay, that's my unbiased opinion. All right, it is rather mind-blowing. It's not easy. I want to make that clear. This is not a journey that's easy, but it's definitely life-altering, and is certainly better than the alternative of grieving their loss, when in truth, they haven't gone anywhere. When in truth, they're right here.
Exactly. They are right here. So, I sort of tongue in cheek said earlier, like one of the co-authors, Pam Johnson, but of course, Alan Johnson is here and really has been, since he crossed, and he's been such an integral part of this book. And of course, he's here in the interview, and I love, like, I've almost gotten used to this, Pam, in conversation with you, just like that little parenthetical aside, like, oh, Alan says, and it's almost like you really do embody this like lived experience of like, yes, we're on the physical plane, but we're not so far from the supernatural, from what is above what we in our human brains think of as like above, the earthly plane. And so the whole premise of this book and your work really is that you can continue to have a relationship, a true interactive, ongoing relationship with someone who has died, who has crossed over to the other side. Is that a fair thing to say?
That's a very fair thing to say, that you can have interactive is exactly right. I teach people how to channel. I've been a teacher of channeling for 35 years because that's how I opened up spiritually and had a big awakening, was through channeling. So right now I'm in the midst of teaching our first class together, he's saying we're calling it intensive. And it's going to lead to a larger program, but we're taking people through the process of learning how to channel, communicate with their partner, and people would be surprised how easy that is. It really is not hard compared to when I had to learn it 35 years ago. He says because the other side is coming through very strongly. And that's why a lot of people, ordinary people who probably don't even believe in this, okay, are having experiences. And I hear from them all the time, and they say, I thought I was crazy. And then I found your group and I realized I'm not crazy. Other people are having these experiences too. And I said, yeah, not just me, okay? There are many other people, and I've met them through having my group and people coming, that this is not an unusual thing. Obviously, most people are not talking about it because most people around them are just going to not understand or tell them they need to see a doctor or something. So it's really hard. On top of that, you're grieving. So in our group, we welcome those people, especially couples and partners, because again, I think that they just have a different relationship and we can speak to that challenge of that loss. But of course, other people, parents and children and losing friends, it's all the same loss. But our goal, our hope is that people understand that there's no reason to grieve, that they're not gone, and that there is a way to make contact. And he's saying through their words, their messages that come through, that's how we get confirmation. Because they tell us things that we don't know, or they say it in ways that we would never express it that way. Like he's used words that I'd never used, and his languaging, in our book especially, you can see that there's a flow to the way he expresses himself, even when other people are speaking for him. There's a certain cadence, certain way that he expresses himself that's not my voice. And I tell people when they learn to channel the same thing, that they can channel their own story, they can have their own interactive dialogue, if you will, as we did in our book. In fact, we want to teach people how to write their own story, how to write their own book, their own, as we did, because I found it was very healing. It was very challenging and cathartic, but it was very healing and transformative for me. And we hope to lead people in that same journey, because I think that's how we will prove to ourselves that our loved ones are with us. We can't really rely on mediums all the time because, in fact, Alan, even though he was a natural born medium who felt spirits around him from childhood and terrified him. And they were always kind of knocking on his door to come through to clients because he was a psychic. And he didn't really like doing mediumship because he just wasn't comfortable with all that emotion for reasons I explained in the book. But he was natural at it, and spirit can see who has that ability. So they were always coming through him. And, the point that he wants to make, though, is that every people can do what he did with their loved ones because of the love bond between us and our partner and family and loved ones, right? You don't have to be a professional medium to do that. We know people who are taking mediumship classes hoping to connect with their loved ones, and that's wonderful, that's great. But you don't even need to do that. We've helped people connect who never did that. So it's all good, but the bond is already there and they want to talk to us. They don't always want to talk through a medium. I've had clients who said their partner didn't want to come through that medium for different reasons, but they want to talk to them directly. So if anybody is interested in that, I'd say just start writing to them, just start talking to them. Most of all, we just have to believe, because till and unless we believe, nothing's going to happen. So that's the hardest part. And even mediums will tell you that. Those who teach mediumship will tell you that the first thing you have to do is believe, because everything comes from that. And without belief, nothing's going to happen. And it's hard, in our world, in our society, where people, even especially today, right? Like fake news and all that. What do you believe? What do I believe? Well, how about we believe in the one we love the most? How about we believe in that? How about we believe in love itself and forget the rest and forget what other people tell us and just trust our heart?
Pam, I'd love to kind of even flash back a little bit, like a couple of years, because I can almost anticipate like an audience, someone who's listening or watching and yeah, well, that's easy for Pam and Alan. They were both psychics and they probably were like crazy in love and had the perfect marriage anyway. So of course, like when Alan died, it was easy for them. So I kind of want to flash back a little bit, because it wasn't really that long ago, right? When Alan was still here. And I mean, you've told me y'all didn't have the perfect marriage, right? You were a normal human, married couple. Can you tell us a little bit about the before, before and after?
Yeah, this is why it was such a transformative journey, because I didn't realize until he passed that I was so pissed off. I was so angry because, first of all, you grieve. And yes, the grieving process one of the stages is anger. And some people are going to be more angry than others. Well, I had a bucket load of anger that I didn't know I was carrying, because to his credit, all right, he fessed up to other people that he had really been a shitty husband. And being psychic doesn't mean you're evolved, okay? It just means he was good at giving readings, amazing at giving readings, phenomenal that way. And yet in his human life, earthbound life, right, it was totally different. He was just not conscious, and he was very selfish. And on the surface, we had what looked like a happy marriage, and everybody thought we were. And I'm not saying we weren't. It was a comfortable marriage. It was more complacent. And he said to me when he came back, he said, a lot of people have complacent relationships where they're comfortable, they're not miserable, but they're not really happy and they're not really alive. They're just existing. And that's basically what we were living. We were okay. We would go places and we weren't fighting. In fact, I don't think we hardly ever fought. He says you have to really have your feelings invested and be open to get upset, If you're shut down emotionally like he was, then what's there to fight about, You're just numb. So he went numb, and I explained why in the book. I didn't understand why he had shut down. For so long, I didn't understand. I just knew that I thought he had PTSD from growing up during World War II, because he was 15 years older than me. So I just thought it was that. That's my assumption. And then I was shocked to find out, no, it wasn't that at all. There was another reason, and I was completely shocked. He had to find somebody to tell me the reason because he couldn't tell me himself. So no, we didn't have a perfect relationship, but we got along. And he says a lot of people have that kind of relationship. They're not fighting. They're not at odds. They're just living together, and yet there's love there, because he says if there isn't love there, they'd probably leave, because that's what happens, but the love kind of will keep people together, but doesn't mean it'll keep them engaged and happy and thriving, right? Or other things that are at play. So when he passed away, I had to clean that all up, and I was surprised. I didn't think I had anger about that. And I forgot, I repressed it all. And so what I learned is, grief, it actually does bring up all your trauma. It brings up anything you haven't healed. So any upset feelings about your partner, or about anybody else for that matter, can come up, and it could get in the way. So I had to start this emotional clearing that I teach other people how to do too, how to get that out, so that not only can your grief subside, but you just be happier in your life, because all that has been holding on to it for so long. So no, and just because we were psychic, he's laughing. He goes, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "Psychics are some of the most messed up people on the planet." Being psychic does not make you spiritually or emotionally evolved. You can see things and know things and can be completely distorted as a person in your emotional self, right, in your life. Two things are totally unrelated. So yeah, they could be evolved. He says, but the proof is, well, how's the quality of their life? Are they happy? Are they doing well? Health-wise, financially, et cetera, right? Like, how are they doing? And also he says, what kind of person are they? Are they genuine? Are they kind? Are they caring? He says, unfortunately, a lot of psychics and mediums, we're all human, and some of them, he says, especially for some reason, mediums, there can be a lot of ego, because he says he knows that, because there's a lot at play there. It's like you have to go out on a limb and say, this is what the loved one on the other side is saying, and it takes confidence, and sometimes they have to kind of bolster that up. And that's why he didn't like doing that, because he didn't know if the person on the other side would really come through, and he didn't like having that uncertainty there. So he'd rather do a psychic reading, because he could just tell people a lot of things that way about their life and what was coming. But mediumship, the medium has to depend on the soul on the other side coming through, and they don't always cooperate, is what he found out. And he didn't like being not in control. So no, he's laughing. He says, we were actually a very ordinary couple who happened to have these other gifts, but in our downtime in a relationship, we're just like everybody else. And he says, psychics are like everybody else. Really, they are. So.
And then kind of like flash forward the other direction, like you and Alan have actually like grown in relationship since he passed. Like you have continued to like interact and have conversation, obviously, right? Like we're sort of all participating in this, which is so just amazing, right? Like really opening up all the possibilities here. And your marriage has enhanced basically since he passed. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, it's a completely different marriage, because he communicates with me in a way he didn't do before. It took time for that to happen because of the issues between us. And so we tell people, we're available for couple counseling, interdimensional couple counseling, because we know that there's oftentimes unresolved issues like we had. And so it took him a while to get to that place where he could talk freely. And it was so frustrating. I didn't understand why it was touch and go and what it was. He'd talk about some things and then not about others. And even though I'm psychic, that's still frustrating, because even more so, because I go, wait a minute, I know I can hear you, but you're not talking. And then my other friend who can hear him and see him, she says, but he talks to me all the time. He's like, won't shut up. And he's like Mr. Chatty Cathy or the chatterbox, And I go, but he's not talking to me. And she said, but he he is talking to me, and I know you can hear him because she's a psychic teacher herself, and she knows me, and she says, I know you're strongly gifted in that way of hearing. I said, but he's not talking to me. And she actually didn't believe me. And I said, I'm not lying. He's not talking to me, not in the way he's talking to you. It took a while for that to get sorted out. And now, yeah, he won't shut up. And that's fine with me. I actually have to tell him, don't make me laugh right now because I'm out somewhere and I don't want to laugh. Don't tell me a joke. Don't tell me that. And he won't. But it takes a while. That's why I said this takes time, and it's a journey, and it's not a simple thing, and every relationship is different. So he says it's complicated. The principles are the same, but everyone's journey will be a little different. And of course, some people will have no problem. I have met people like that. They had no problem connecting, and they have a beautiful relationship with their partner. But he says that's rare, because most times, when you're in a relationship in this world, nobody's perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. When we're in this reality, in the earth plane reality, we came here to have challenges, to learn from those issues and challenges. So that's why our marriage had to have the problems it had. I didn't understand that till he came back and told me that it all happened the way it was supposed to. And I said, who decided that? I was really upset. And he goes, we did. I go, what were we thinking? And it explained why. And I thought, all right, that makes sense, because everyone plans their life on the other side. I mean, I knew that because I studied the afterlife, and I've been in this field for so long. I knew that we plan our life before we come in. I just didn't understand what we had planned. I just thought, I was kind of surprised. We plan to do what we're doing right now, writing this book at this late stage of my life, and teach people. That was the big plan. And it wasn't to have this perfect idyllic marriage while he was here. So he says, we'll have it now that he's on the other side, I guess. So it'll be different for sure. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it is extraordinary and unbelievable. But it is what it is. I don't know how else to, when people ask me how to explain it, except that every day is different. Every day is like something else new happened, and I get to figure out really who I am as a soul, like, why am I here? And even beyond the relationship with him, which of course is really important to me, I realize it's not just about him, right? It's not just about our relationship. It's what am I here to do? Because obviously I still have work to do if I'm still here. And everyone who's still here and not on the other side, that means you're still here for a reason. So we best find out, well, what is the reason? It might be something huge. It might be something small. Whatever it is, it's our reason. And it would be great if we just embrace it and do our best to live with joy. They want us to. They want us to live with joy and to include them and to feel them as there all the time, because they are here all the time. They don't really go anywhere. This whole idea that they're gone some faraway place. No, their reality is unfolded into this reality. And so the other side is right here all the time. It's just a question of our perception. Are we in a place within ourselves still enough to hear them, feel them? Or are we, as most people are, walking around, with our phones stuck in front of our face and not even listening to people in a body, let alone somebody not in a body? So, what is that? Where are we at? But they want to connect. That I do know for sure.
Well, folks, if y'all are here, you're watching, you're listening, you're like, this is my kind of conversation, or like, I didn't even know this was a conversation, but maybe this speaks to you in some way, or someone who you've lost in your life, or someone who's lost someone really important in their lives. And maybe this is something you're curious about. How can you connect with people on the other side and continue to be in relationship with them? The good news is Supernatural Love, A True Story of Life and Love After Death, we're putting on massive promotion. We want to get it out to as many people as possible, which means that you can get a copy of the ebook for free right now. You can go to paperravenbooks.com/supernatural love, all one word. They'll take you straight over to Amazon. You'll see the ebook is free right there. You can get the other versions of the books too. But if you want the ebook right now, you can grab it right there, load it up in your Kindle, get it ready for the weekend. If you know anyone in your sort of earthly life who might also be interested in this conversation, I would encourage you to go ahead and tag them or share this with them today while you're here and while you're thinking about it, so that they can also get a copy of the ebook for free today. So that's at paperravenbooks.com/supernatural love. There'll be a link next to this video. You can just click that link next to this video. It'll take you straight over to Amazon to grab a copy. And Pam, I'm especially curious from the writer's perspective. When you and I first had the conversation, you were like, so Morgan, I have quite a book for you, and it's going to be me and Alan writing it. And I was like, holy moly, we've not done this before. Let's buckle in for the ride. Right. But and of course you didn't really know what it was going to be like either, because you hadn't written a book with Alan on the other side before. What happened? What unfolded? How was this writing process for both of you?
Well, that's interesting you asked that, because when I was in college and taking, like anybody, taking English, right, taking writing, and my freshman year taking expository writing, my teacher pulled me aside and said, look, I think you should be a writer. You're really talented. And it's not just because almost everybody in the class is kind of asleep with their writing. He goes, because the class met at 7 o'clock in the morning, literally, And he said, no, but really, you need to consider, being a writer. And I knew instinctively that that wasn't my path for me at the time. I knew I had to live life. I knew that. But here's the thing with me. I would be back in the day when there were message boards, not Facebook, not, the internet wasn't full of social media, right? It was like message boards. And I would be in certain groups and I would read somebody's writing question and I would get the answer. I would feel compelled to write something. Okay, some of these groups were spiritual. He's reminding me, most of them are spiritual groups, like maybe a group of a spiritual teacher, of angels or something, or about mediumship, whatever. And I would feel compelled to write. So I would write the answer that came to me. And they would say, that's amazing, that helped me so much. And in one group, people would post questions and actually say, I hope Pam will answer this question. And I started feeling embarrassed because I didn't want anybody to think I was taking over this group from the teacher. I just felt like the other side wanting to speak, wanting to answer their question. And I know that that's how that works. The other side, whether you want to say your loved one on the other side, your guides, your angels, God, whatever, right? There's a higher power, higher intelligence that will speak through us. And I'm strongly claircognizant, which means clear knowing. So I have the ability to just know when somebody asks, like I said, when somebody asks a question, I often will know the answer. Or when there's a problem, I'll know the solution. And I'm not the only one. There was a lot of people who have this ability and they don't even probably recognize that they have this ability. They just do it. And people like us are called know-it-alls. Like, how come you seem to know everything? I go, I don't know. This happens to me all the time. So what happened with Alan was kind of easy, because he would just I would ask something and he would start telling me, but it would come through writing, okay, not through, let's say, speaking like into this microphone or just telepathic. It actually came through writing, because it started when after he passed, when I'd get on Facebook and I'd message somebody, right? Like we all do, message somebody. And I could feel him come in and he'd want to say something to them too. So I feel all this love come in and I'd go, well, you really love this person. Yes, he's my friend. And he'd want me to say something. So it started that way. And I just felt him wanting to talk. He wanted to express himself. So every morning I'd wake up and usually I would sit down and there'd be something he wanted to tell me. So he'd either tell me what he wanted to say, or I would describe what was happening to me, in either with that or separate from that. And I just felt this compulsion to write it and to post it in the group that asked me to form. So that group, which grew from my personal profile page where I was sharing details about him when he passed away, like a lot of people do, right? They turn their page into kind of a shrine to them, like here are all the photos of our life together. And I did that on my page because I knew he wanted that. And so that morphed to where he started talking to me, and he said, open this group. So I opened that group, and I told people I'm going to continue the conversation in this group because I don't think it's best to be in my profile page. So we're going to form a group. And that first group was called Supernatural Love, actually. The name is now Soulmates in the Afterlife, but the initial group was Supernatural Love. And so from that day, I told everybody, I'm forming this group. If you want to come, here's a link. I think the first day, 150 people joined that group, and they were friends and mostly friends and clients. Well, he says mostly clients because we had a lot of clients. So they all joined that group, and they said, well, I just want to see how this story ends because he's talking to you and I just want to see what happens. And so they weren't necessarily people who had lost a loved one. They were just fascinated, and they knew it was real. Plus a lot of them knew Alan. So they wanted to see what happened. So I started sharing. And then I just had so much writing accumulated. By the time I met you, I thought, well, the book will just be these writings. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, it has to be a narrative. It's not just a collection of writings. And so really a lot of the writing kind of got left on the side, and not a lot of it is in the book. But I started to explain the whole process. And as I did that, he came through with that. He came through to explain certain things about that. So it was a different kind of book. I don't know how many people start their book on Facebook, you know? I mean, I feel like I'm an infomercial for Facebook, and I really don't want to be. I don't think Zuckerberg needs my help to grow Facebook, right? I mean, I really don't think so. But that's the truth. Like, I turned my Facebook group into a blog where to this day, if anybody went in there, you could scroll down and see the first postings, because they go back now over 2 years of all those postings and things that he wanted to say and things that happened and what people said to that and all that. So it's all there. He wanted it chronicled. He also wanted an audience, because he wanted me to share what he wrote and then have people say, oh, hi, Alan, like, because they remembered him, or they would reply to what he expressed. And a lot of them were very moved by it, by what he shared, and they had questions for him. They wanted to know about life on the other side, perhaps, or about what was coming, you know, down the road. And he had opinions about that. He had things to say about that. And we haven't dwelled so much on that in our writing, but he wants to in the future. But this book, it was more about talking about our relationship and how other people could navigate this themselves. So yeah, the writing process, it was never a problem for me to write. It was always a more question of editing it out. Like, what do, you know, I can't put everything in here. What, you know, like, that's a different kind of problem. I have so much material. How do I leave out, you know, what, and put in what do I do? And then the story kept changing, like, because new things, had new revelations happening as I wrote the book. As you know, I thought, I'm done. No, I'm not done. Wait, something else happened. Oh my God. I thought I was all, you know, I was all healed of my resentment. No, I'm not. Wait a minute. Why does this keep happening to me? And isn't that the nature of life, though? You know, you just think it's not neat and tidy. And he said, that's why you know the story is true, because it's not neat and tidy or pretty. It's all complicated and surprising. Like, oh, that's what the problem was? And that's the solution? Oh, okay. All right. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning today, because he's showing me all the time. And now we're teaching people, and I'm learning from that. He's showing me, at the end of the book, he showed me that that path would be what was happening now. So.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight just a couple things that you were talking about there, Pam, which is one was like the smaller writings, you know, that y'all put in a Facebook group, but could just as easily have been on a blog or a newsletter or whatever. Like, you have these smaller writings with little stories and themes, and you get kind of an audience reaction to those. And when you start the book, you might use those as like fodder or inspiration, but like you mentioned, Pam, like eventually you're going to need to kind of come down to this narrative. And both you
Right.
and Alan have mentioned principles, right? So what are like the principles of like what we want to talk about? It's like almost like the core material, because you're going to have so much more to talk about. Like you are like, this is the beginning, right? So like you have courses, you have other teachings and things that are going to come from this, but this is like that very beginning sort of like core material that someone might, be interested in or need at the beginning of their journey. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Like, I still get a lot of questions in my group, real basic questions people have about, because there's so much information about the afterlife out there, so many groups on the afterlife. And to be honest with you, not some of them are great and some of them not so great. Part of the problem is there's so much information. Well, you know that. I mean, there's just so much information. A lot of it is distorted. A lot of it simply isn't true. So I have people coming to me saying they thought they heard this and this, and I'd go, that's not true. That's rubbish. Like, so it's really hard because it's almost like we have to deprogram people. But yeah, there was so much writing that came from him, and it was, his point was always consistently that he didn't want me to see a medium because he said, mediumship can be easily distorted, and there are some excellent mediums and there are a lot of fake mediums, and how do you know the difference? And so he's always was saying to me, I want you to talk to me directly, and I want you to teach other people to talk directly, because we can talk to them from the other side. And he would tell me things like, now he wants me to point this out. One of the first things he told me was, I'm crossed over so that I could help souls on the other side communicate to their loved ones like I'm communicating with you. And at first I laughed. I said, you're kidding. How are you gonna do that? I never heard of that before. And he made me get a few books by mediums. And he'd say, just read this book. And I go, why? And I read this book that said, and actually I can't find the book now, I got so many books, but the book actually said, yes, there's souls on the other side who help the souls there to communicate to their loved ones here, because they don't always have the ability to. Some of them do, some of them don't. So he laughed at me and he said, I told you that. I told you, that's my job. I said, well, what are you doing? Are you holding big conferences on the other side? And he said, why not? There's everything there that there is here in this world. Why not? Of course I am. And I didn't believe, right? I mean, I'd say, all right, well, show me that. And then I'd have clients saying they felt like Alan was helping them or their loved one on the other side. Not maybe always, it really depended, but he started proving that to me. And he said, yeah, we're all over here. They all want to come through. And people are open to it now. And that's why our book is coming out now. And that's why I left when I left. Because plus he said he was tired of being old, because he died on his birthday. He died on his birthday to prove that he chose that day. He chose his birthday to die. And he had turned 83. So he said, he didn't look 83. He looked more like he was 63 or so. But he was tired of being old. So yeah, there's more writing coming. And he said the other writings that we did, he said they might become a book in itself at some point, because when I share those old writings, I still get people thanking me, saying that it helped them so much to understand. Like they can hear their loved one speaking through Alan, because he says, remember, we're all one soul, living the illusion that we're separate when we're really not. And so his voice is in fact speaking for all their voices in that respect, right? Because love is love. And that's why all of us relate to love stories, because even if the people are so different from us, right? Because love is love. So you can feel the love between two people and you identify with it. You identify with the struggle, even if it's different from your own, because we all have struggles. We all have heartbreak. We all have disappointments. So he says, so of course, when they read our book, they'll see themselves in that in some way. And I've had people tell me that. They said they felt their husband speaking to them through Alan, which really moved me. That was so beautiful. They said, I can feel him saying that to me. And he says, don't ever doubt that if they're reading that book, that their loved one in spirit is leaning in close and saying, that's how I feel too. That's what I want you to know too. He said, that's how it works. So, and he also said, he says he just has to get this in. He said, he told me when we first started writing, the book itself, like holding the book, would be really healing for people, just having the book. And then he showed me the image, you know, the movie Jumanji. I said, what are you showing me Jumanji for? Like this book, like he opened the book and this whole game comes out to life. And he goes, why not? Like, why not? It's a magical book. So I just cracked up, and he keeps showing me that. He says, yeah, that book is like Jumanji. It's like a doorway, a portal to the other side. So I have clients and friends who say, I can't wait to get the physical book. I want to get that book. And I'm honestly not trying to plug the physical book, okay? Please get the ebook, because we want everyone to read the ebook to be helped. But he said, and I swear it was so funny when he first showed me that, and I saw the Jumanji movie just play out in my mind. Yeah, that book is like that. It's going to be like that. Like you open up into this other world, that he would make sure that the energies would be embedded in that. And I've since had spiritual friends tell me that, oh yeah, that happens. Spiritual teachers understand that that definitely can happen. You can embed frequencies and energies into objects. So he says, just wait, you'll see. He says, just wait. The world will see.
Oh, I love it so much, Pam and Alan. Of course.
It's crazy. I know this is so crazy, guys. Like some of you watching this going, what? Really? Like what? But just get the free ebook, you know? We really are happy that everybody can read it for free, because he wanted that. He wants to help everybody. He wants people to call on him for help, to call on us for help. He says, no, wait, call on him for help. Don't call on me because I have limited time. He has unlimited time. We explain that in the book, how to call on him for free, because we have helped heal people. And that's in the book too, how we healed people and helped them. So for free. For free.
Wow. Guys, if you're here, if you're watching, if you're listening and you're like, I want to know more, the good news is, like Pam and Alan have just said, you can grab a copy of the ebook for free today. Click the link next to this video, paperravenbooks.com/supernatural love. Take you over to Amazon. That's where you can grab your free copy of the ebook. You can also get a physical copy, you know, if you want to hold it in your hands like the Jumanji book and open up to the other world. And I think it's so amazing and generous that, like, embedded in all of your work, Pam and Alan, is really the desire to heal people and connect people from, you know, from both sides, and that you have, you know, Pam on one side and Alan on this side, and that you're both working toward that goal of integration is just incredible and beautiful. So if you guys want to know more about the work that Pam and Alan Johnson are doing, first step is to grab the ebook for free. Tag someone or share this with someone who might be interested in this conversation. And then you guys have ways to get people plugged into your community and other healing work too. So thank you, Pam, for being here. Thank you, Alan, for being here too, and for sharing your message and your mission with all of us. Any last words for folks who might be diving into supernatural love?
No, thanks so much for having us. And yeah, if folks want to find us right away, just join our Facebook group. Alan pledged that we would always have that group and be helping people. Weekly, we go live, and I do a 30-minute, maybe 40-minute. He says, he laughs. He goes, sometimes I keep talking, right? I can't keep it to 30 minutes, but I try to. But yeah, he said we would always do outreach through Facebook for now. That may change, right? Who knows how long Facebook will be around. But for now, that's our place where people can find us. But that group is for partners and spouses. So we're there. And other than that, yeah, they can find us through the book, because there's links to our website and things like that. We do offer programs for people, and the program is a little more flexible. You don't have to be a partner or spouse. We're open to people who are just spiritual seekers, so they can reach out to us there. But the group is more for partners and spouses, because we have some, he says, we have some, let's say, some juicy conversations about, you know, let's just say subjects that only partners want to talk about. And it's in the book too. We do talk about that subject, like supernatural sex. I'll just say it right there.
What a tease cliffhanger there.
Because there is a chapter in the book. Actually, there's 2 chapters in the book. But don't worry, it's actually PG 13 or 14. It's not R-rated at all. He was saying, we'll save the R-rated for a future book. Or maybe the movie of the book. I don't know.
Perfect. So supernatural love, a true story of life and love after death. For anyone who wants to know more about what it's like to connect with someone on the other side, your spouse, child, parent, family member, friend. And if you're curious about that special relationship between spouses, Pam and Alan do go there. So join the Facebook group for that. And they have all sorts of programs and support and healing for folks. So thank y'all for the work that you do. Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. Click that link next to this video, grab that ebook, share it with a friend, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.